I'm here to talk to you about the construction industry, but most importantly for me, consultant and professional roles. So I'll talk to you about what that means. There is another speaker, I believe, coming on maybe on another day that will talk to you about other areas of construction, but I'm here to talk to you about consultant and professional roles, okay? So who am I? As Kelly said, I'm James Potter. I'm a chartered structural engineer. Nobody really tends to know what that is, and so I follow that up with I design buildings, okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I'm managing director of a company called Superstructures, which is a structural engineering consultancy. We have offices in Ipswich and Cambridge, and we work on projects, building projects in all sectors. So when I talk about all sectors, it might be housing, big housing, schools, industrial projects, commercial, you name it, we work on it. And they're up to a value of about £15 million. So some fairly big projects around the region. This is to show you a little bit about what we do and to hopefully grab your attention a little bit in terms of the construction industry. So you'll see some nice one-off grand design style houses in there, some industrial buildings, some conversions, some schools. And that's kind of that's the stuff that we work on a day-to-day basis. So, I'll talk a little bit about what's exciting about that. Consultant and professional roles in construction. It's really important, for me that I talk to you about this and try and just get some understanding out there, or a little bit more understanding about what that means. Okay, so working in the construction industry doesn't just mean that you have a site-based role. So, you're a ground worker, bricklayer, carpenter, that sort of thing. Those roles are incredibly rewarding roles, okay, those skilled roles, but they aren't for everyone. Me in particular, I do like working in the office most of the time. I wouldn't want to be on a building site all day, every day, but a lot of people do. If you don't, then, there are other roles in the construction industry. So I always, think of consultant and professional roles as being office-based jobs. The crucial thing to know is they're not just office-based jobs, so that is confusing. But think of them as a kind of more office-based design type of roles. Okay. Why am I talking to you about this? Well, it's really important to me because when I was sort of between the ages of about 12 to 21, I knew exactly what I wanted to do for a career. But it wasn't working in the construction industry at all because I didn't know anything about the construction industry. I used to walk past building sites. That was pretty much about it. I wanted to be a designer. I wanted to be a product designer. And that's what I based all of my education around, my degree, everything. And it wasn't until I accidentally got a job in structural engineering that I realized all of the opportunity that is in the construction industry for consultant and professional role positions. Okay. So I had no idea about the roles and the opportunities that are out there. And the other reason I talk to people about what I do now is because I hated maths and I hated engineering at school and at college and at university. Didn't see the point of it. I was okay at it. I got a B at GCSE, but crucially, I failed my AS level maths because I couldn't be bothered to turn up. I really didn't like it at all. And what happened to me was as soon as I started working in engineering and I was designing buildings, big buildings, using maths and physics, I, for the first time in my life, really understood maths and why I was using it. And then I got hooked. So when I thought I was bad at something and wasn't interested, it's just because I couldn't really see the point. So that's why I try and shout a little bit about our roles in our great industry. The construction industry, actually, Pam was talking about fashion, that we will always have fashion. The construction industry is the same. Okay, society will always need to build things. They might be houses, schools, warehouses, but things like roads, rail networks. Okay, the list is endless. We're always developing as a human race, and we will always need construction. And I believe there is a great career in there for everybody. So it doesn't matter whether you are an artist or whether you're a mathematician or whether you want to be a lawyer. Okay, I know I talk to a lot of young people at careers events and they all want to be lawyers, right? You can be a lawyer in the construction industry. Okay, so there's a great career for everybody. Designing, engineering and construction new buildings is an incredibly rewarding experience. So I get to design buildings on paper in the office, and then I get to go and see them being built, and they will be there for the rest of my life, probably far longer than that. So it's a very satisfying thing to do. Every day is different. every project is different, and every team is different. So there's a huge amount of variation, which is great for me because I have a really short attention span. And I love, continual challenges. So there's always another challenge. There's always something else to learn about, which for somebody like me is great. And I mentioned, it's not just an office job. As a structural engineer or another one of the consultant roles I'm talking about, you might be in the office 3 days a week. You might be out and about on site some other days of the week, a couple of days a week. You might be here and there, so it's a real good variation of time, which I think is really exciting. Sometimes you might structure the indoor a little bit more in the winter when the weather's miserable like it is now. So what am I going to cover? I'm going to run through these roles really quickly. There are lots of professional and consultant roles in construction, okay? And I'm just going to talk about the main ones, and I will show you how and where to get the information if you would like to look at some others. I'm going to talk about structural and civil engineering because that's what I am. I'm going to do my best to talk to you about architecture, quantity surveying and project management, and mechanical and electrical engineering or building services. I will do my best to talk to you about those, but most importantly, I'm going to tell you about how you find out more about those roles, okay? Because I am a structural engineer. I work with all these other consultants, but they will know far more than I do. So hopefully I do them justice. Best place for information. There's loads of information out there. I'll run through a few more places at the end, but I am also at the moment, as well as being the MD at Superstructures, I'm also currently the chairman of the Suffolk Joint Construction Committee, okay, the SJCC. We have a website. It's quite new. There's not a huge amount on there, but what is on there is a really, really good section about careers in the construction industry. There are the more site-based, skills-based roles on there as well. So you'll see here, I've given you all of the roles that we list. There are others, but pipe fitters, plumbers, electrician, okay, stuff like that. So there are site-based roles, but there are also consultant roles and professional roles. So you will be able to go on there, and I will run through and show you an example of the roles that I'm going to talk about. But you can go on there and you can just get some really, really simple, stripped out information about what those roles are, the sorts of stuff you might be doing on a day-to-day basis, and your educational route in, so you can get a really good idea of where they are. So sjcc.co.uk/careers. Go on there, and I think that's the best place to start for some really good stripped out information. But I am biased because I'm the chairman, but it is good. Right, so those consultant and professional roles, I'm just going to run through them really quickly, okay? I'm obviously going to start with the structural engineering role. So structural engineers, as I said, we design buildings, okay? I say we design buildings with maths, physics, common sense. Ideally, they don't fall down. That's what we do. We design buildings so they don't fall over, but they need to perform, and there's all sorts of technical issues in terms of structural engineering buildings. They move around, they vibrate. We need to design them to be sustainable, safe, all those sorts of things, okay? What I'm going to do, hopefully this will work, is I will click on this link. This link is the SJCC link. There we go. So this is the sort of information that you will get. It's a PDF. It's just 2 pages, okay, for each role, yeah? It will give you an idea of what the role is. It will give you some salary expectations. Everybody wants to know what their opportunities are like, okay? So it's really important. It will talk to you about career progression. So graduate engineer, engineer, senior engineer, principal engineer. And most importantly, I'm just going to run through the typical, I'll just touch on the typical tasks, okay, for a structural engineer. So we obviously design a lot of things. We work in computer-aided design. We have lots of great 3-dimensional software now where we can model buildings in 3D. Structural analysis, lots of calculations. There is a lot of calculations, less now that we have computers. I don't use a calculator that often, but there's also all the other stuff. We attend meetings with design teams, clients, contractors, really interesting things. We meet lots of people. We're out and about, site surveys, testing, assessing load pass, lots of physics, lots of common sense about how buildings go together. Okay, and lots of different areas, as I've said, public, commercial, residential, industrial, all these sorts of areas. Your entry routes are here, okay? These aren't your only entry routes. I've proven this, these are not the only way to become a structural engineer. I had a completely different route. But a degree, normally we'll do a degree in civil engineering and then specialize in structures afterwards, okay? Civil engineering tends to be more big projects, big bridges, rail, roads, that sort of stuff. You could do some full-time employment with somebody like me, possibly a degree apprenticeship, that would be great. So degree apprenticeships across all the specialisms that I'm talking to you about, they are a great way in now, okay? You need to have a good understanding of maths and science, obviously, and an eye for design. That's all I'm going to talk about in structural engineering. I don't want to seem too biased, okay? But go on there, have a look yourself. It's a fantastic, profession. Okay, that's the structural engineer done. Architect. What everybody knows what an architect is. It's the most popular. It's the easy one. They're the people that always design buildings. Okay, not just about drawing. Really important to note that I did some work experience in architecture, and I did some drawing, but I did a lot of other stuff that I didn't really enjoy very much. But that doesn't mean it's not for you. So architects, they really design how the building looks, how it's laid out, how the space works. But critically, they also have a lot of client contact. You've got to be good with clients. You've got to know a huge amount about regulations, all of these sorts of things. Okay. And again, I'm just going to very quickly click on the link to the SJCC. There we have an architect. Okay. So typical tasks, taking a brief from a client, really important that you can talk to your client and understand what they want in a building. Lots of sketching, lots of drawing, surveying, sometimes 3D model making, more often than not now in a virtual environment, but also project programming, project contract management, lots of site inspections, funding applications, paperwork, and sometimes public consultations. So on big projects, talking to huge numbers of the public about big developments and members of the government and also stuff like that. Entry routes, you know, lots of different ways in as well. Standard 5 years studying on a course recognised by the Architects Registration Board. 2 years of work experience are normally sandwiched in there somewhere, I think. So it's a chunk of degree work at university, then some learning and some work with an architect, and then possibly you have to go back and do your final qualifications. It's all in there, okay? But they tend to be the lead consultants, the person that the client goes to first. A lot of drawing and a lot of great things to do in architecture. That's the architecture bit done. Quantity surveyor. So I've put quantity surveyor and project manager kind of combined because that's what a lot of them tend to do. Quantity surveyor, in really simple terms, works out how much something's going to cost to build, okay? But critically, it's much more, there's a lot more to do than just work out how much it's going to cost. When you work out how much something's going to cost, you work out how much of something there is. So all of the materials, how they're going to come to site, where they're going to be procured from, how long the project's going to take to build, all of these things. Try and make it as efficient as possible. Try and work out if the client can actually even afford to build the building that they want to build. Okay, all these sorts of things. And because they do that, they tend to be project managers as well. So they will come in at the start of the project and they will very much manage budgets, expectations, timescales. They will manage people like me, other consultants, architects, make sure that we're all delivering the project on time. I've got 2 links here. One is to the quantity surveyor, one is to the project manager. I think we'll just quickly touch on the quantity surveyor. So again, lots of maths in there because you're going to be working in numbers, okay? But GCSEs, A-levels, including science, technology, English, particularly maths, as I said, and IT is useful. Relevant subjects, surveying, construction, civil engineering. So that's when you look at your degree route in, okay? So there are different ways in. Quantity surveyors do tend to be quite well-rounded. They might not specifically have had a background in one, you know, in a quantity surveying background. They might have done a degree of civil engineering and realized it wasn't for them, okay? So again, a really good varied role, really satisfying when you deliver a project on time. You've all probably watched Grand Designs and realized that they all go over budget and they all delayed and all that sort of stuff. So you could potentially make sure that doesn't happen. Last role, so it's the last one, mechanical and electrical engineer or building services. So again, really, really important. We probably all walk past buildings or are in buildings every day. We don't think about everything that's in the ceiling voids, in the walls, all of these services, all of the systems that keep us cool or keep us warm or automatically open doors in front of us and all of these sorts of things. And now, you know, with more technology, there's automated systems that draw the blinds, turn the heating on before you get home from work, turn your oven on, all these things, you know. And, these guys are the people that do that. Okay. So, and now, we were talking about sustainability earlier. Again, Pam was talking about sustainability. This is key. They work out how quickly the heat leaves the building, how quickly the heat comes into the building, all these sorts of amazing things, environmental things. So again, onto the SJCC website, building services engineer, again, design, calculations, project management, computer-aided design, so working on site, again, sustainability and energy consultancy. So again, really varied, in the office, out on site, working in these great teams of people in construction. Your entry route is there for you. Accredited engineering degree, so you can do a mechanical engineering degree. It's probably quite a popular route, or an electrical engineering degree, going through that way. But again, now apprenticeships, get in for some work experience, learn on the job, be released to do your degree part-time. All these sorts of options are open to you now, which is fantastic. But that is where to find the information. Okay, so I'm going to move away from the information. I'm going to rattle through the rest. This is just really a quick example of something we're working on, and I'm not going to explain this in detail because we haven't got a huge amount of time. This is a 3-dimensional model created by an architect, believe it or not. It does look quite real. It's a live project that we're working on at the moment. This is an architectural model. This is our structural model showing everything underneath it. This is where we're putting all of our forces, loads, working out what's happening to the building. The services engineers will be working out where all their ducting's going, how they're going to heat the place, how they're going to cool it. We all make sure that things don't clash with each other. The quantity surveyor will be working out how much it's all going to cost and when it's going to come onto site and all these sorts of things. And looking at the timescale. So this is really, the architect creates the idea of the building, how it's going to look, how it's going to be laid out, all that sort of stuff. And then we all come in and join and make this amazing building project happen. So really coming towards the end now, where do you start? So I would say SJCC website, probably the easiest way to go. Have a look, see if anything sort of suits your interests, I guess, in terms of roles. Keep an open mind. You might be somebody like me who really thinks you've got an idea about what you want to do. Actually, you might have a change in the future. Professional institutions. So us consultants, we all have a professional institution and they will have their own websites. So the IStruct for the Institution of Structural Engineers, RIBA, Royal Institute of British Architects, RICS, that's one for the surveyors and the quantity surveyors, and CIBSE is the Building Services Engineers. Okay, so have a look at their websites. Consider your further education. So look at A-levels, T-levels now for the, more technology based than A-levels. T-levels, BTEC. I spend a lot of time with BTEC students who are doing engineering courses, fantastic. Or degree apprenticeships. Okay, so once you've got that A-level, T-level, BTEC, then think about degrees or a degree apprenticeship. Really, degree apprenticeships now really coming in, and I think they're a fantastic way to get people into the industry. Talk to whoever is educating you. Talk to your tutors. Get their knowledge on what they think your strengths might be and what they think you might need to work on and who you might need to talk to. They might know somebody like me or Kaylee, and you can get in touch with us and talk to us about it. Connect with local employers. So they may be offering apprenticeships, they might be looking for work experience placements, bespoke training programs. The construction industry, we are crying out for people. We always have a skills shortage. There'll definitely be people like me that are really interested in talking to you. And you've got loads of technology now. So Google, YouTube, social media platforms, it's all out there. I had to probably look in the newspaper, and that was as much as I had. So now, it's all out there for you, dead easy. That is it. That's my presentation. That's a bit of a reminder about what we do, and there may well be a few questions. So I'll stop sharing the screen, and Kaylee will probably ask me some questions.
Yes, so perfect. Thank you for that, James. Showing your age there as well with the newspaper.
Absolutely.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. Really went into depth about the different roles. We had one question in the chat box, which came through to me privately. So Would you recommend an apprenticeship route for those interested in electrical installation, or just the college educational route, sort of based on the current pandemic and barriers to youth employment currently? So, yeah, I'll hand over to you on that and maybe speak about apprenticeships in the construction industry.
Yeah, so it fundamentally it really depends on how you want to progress and how you think might best suit you. What I would say about the pandemic at the moment is that construction is continuing. The government have asked, they wrote us a letter. All us, all of us employers in the construction industry received a letter telling us all that we are an essential service and we must continue. So construction is continuing, which is fantastic. Sites are open. They're all being operated in a COVID secure environment, all that sort of stuff. There's a huge amount of work going on there. And so I would hope that apprenticeships, traditional apprenticeships, are still there. Employment's still there. So whatever suits you. In the professional and consultant roles, apprenticeships are quite a new thing, or they might have been around a while ago before I was kind of on the scene, but they're quite new. We were all very traditional: go to university, get your degree, then come out and apply for a job. It's not like that anymore. You can still do that if the university experience is something you really want. And I certainly had it. It might not have been in construction; it was in something else, but it was fantastic. It's now 5 times more expensive than when I was at university. And I know, that is something that's really been affected by the pandemic. Again, hopefully we're coming to the end of that now. But if the university, if the traditional university experience is not for you, apprenticeships are great. Degree apprenticeships, go in, you will effectively be paid a salary to go to work. You will be learning on the job. You will be learning your degree, sometimes virtually, sometimes in a classroom. By the time you get to 4 or 5 years down the line, you'll have 4 or 5 years amazing working experience, and you'll have your degree or your qualification. So I think it's a great route, but I wouldn't discount the traditional university route if that's something that people want to do.
Amazing, thank you. And if somebody's interested in getting a qualification in a trade within construction, but and they absolutely love it, once they have that trade, is there routes for them to progress as well within the construction industries? Maybe if they still want to stay quite practical, what are some progression routes? But even if they go through more sort of the behind the scenes and the office based routes as well.
Yeah, okay. So that's one of the things that when me and my sort of peers talk about construction, that's one of the things that we really, try and shout about, is that most people in construction will move around, whether they move around or they move up in their line of work, or whether they transfer across. There's a huge amount of scope for people moving around. So on the skills based side, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, that sort of, those sorts of bricklayers, a lot of those start on site, they learn their trade, and they then progress up to a management role. So they might be a site manager or something like that. And they'll then be in charge of all of the trades on the site. They'll be in charge of health and safety. They'll be in charge of deliveries coming in. They'll be in charge of delivering that project on time. Okay. So that's a great role to be in. You might get somebody that starts on site and then they decide that actually, when they're in their 30s or 40s and they don't want to be traipsing around on site all day anymore, carrying stuff, they go into the office and they become a design manager, or they might become a director of a building company or something like that. So there's always roles for progression. And I certainly went in at the very bottom of my profession. I didn't have a civil engineering degree. Came in, I was digging holes on site. I was loving digging holes on site. I was driving around the countryside, having a good time. And then I slowly worked up through the roles in my industry, and then decided to start my own company. So there's huge opportunities for progression, because we always have a shortage of people. So there's always room for progression and moving up and moving across to different sectors of the industry as well. So.
Amazing, thank you. It's great to hear that there are so many different progression routes as well. Also, one final question. Just what is something that you're working on at the moment that you're really excited about?
Um, the really exciting ones I can't tell you about. They're quite secret because all the good ones are until we build them, and then they're not secret anymore. But we've got two really good ones at the moment, good Suffolk projects. We've got a new Felixstowe cafe, which is coming on really well. It's a really nice design. It's based around a kind of shell design. It's slightly not unusual, but for a cafe, it's a great cafe. It's a big cafe. It's right on the front of Felixstowe. It's going to be a really nice community project when it's finished. So we're really happy about that. And the other one is we've got a really nice project right in the centre of Bury St Edmunds. It's hugely complicated. It's right in the middle of the retail area. We've got a basement there. We're putting up a tower crane. There's no space on the site. People are going to be moving around, shopping around us, and we're building some new shops. And then we've got lots of residential going on top. So that's a very, very challenging, really, really tricky project. But again, right in the centre of Bury, and that's going to be a great one when it's finished.
Well, thank you. I asked that question just because I think it's really great to see, especially at the moment, that this work is still happening. You are still very, very busy, and the roles are there as well. And I think that's really comforting for parents and carers to know that and hear that as well from someone like yourselves. That's brilliant. Before we go, is there anything that you wanted to maybe just some last parting words of wisdom or
My parting words of wisdom? It really is. It's just about giving some consideration to an industry that you may not really have considered before. And so I like I said, it got me to the age of 21. I'd done GCSEs, A levels, and a degree before I accidentally fell into construction, and it's a great career for me, and it's incredibly rewarding. It's something that I never thought I'd end up doing. So it's just maybe if you're really, really focused on something you want to do. Like I say, I go to a lot of career events, and the majority of young people that come through want to be doctors, lawyers, or vets, and they're all great professions. But there are other great professions in the construction industry, and young people are needed, and they'll be very well looked after and very well rewarded, I'm sure.
amazing? Yeah, those pay did look quite nice when you were showing those, which is great.
Yeah.
I've also put the SJCC website in the chat box so people can go to that and have a look at all the other different roles. But James, thank you so much for taking your time this evening to come and talk to us and give a little bit more information about the construction industry. It's been great to have you on. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We'll
Yeah.
chat soon.